talk a little bit about your recording process. What is it like in the studio? Like, how do you do the? I mean, obviously, Nick, you come up with a lot of these melodies, but I'm sure Thomas does too. And
yeah, I mean, I guess normally there's kind of three primary songwriters in the group: myself, Tom, and Joe Hobson as well. And usually, whoever's one of us three will bring a song that's pretty much complete. Sometimes 100%, sometimes like 75% or something. And then with the group, we'll kind of like mess around, learn the parts or tweak arrangements and stuff like that. And then for these last two records, we're mostly done. I feel like they're more like primarily done in the studio, where we were kind of coming up with a lot of stuff while we were recording, whereas like the one before that, we like kind of came up with a lot of the parts as a live band, just like rehearsing in the basement, and then recorded that. But for the last two, I feel like it's been better. We've been, coming up with a lot more parts on the fly in the studio, and that, I don't know, I feel like that's been pretty cool. So that's how it's been going so far.
You guys open to each other's criticism?
Yeah, definitely.
I think so, yeah.
It tends to, when you have that sort of, relationship dynamic, you can sort of maybe take, that sucks, or no, that's great, but change this.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of, tweaking of little ideas, and it's fine if someone's like, try going flat on that note instead. It's like, oh, well, that's cool, yeah. That kind of stuff.
I'm sure it's even changed as, but previously, I mean, when you guys started making music, there was no internet. I mean, there was, but it wasn't, a form of obtaining music or entertainment to that level.
Well,
in a way.
Yeah, I mean, we
certainly
we
not
did
to
find,
where it is now.
Yeah, not to where it is now, but we found our outlets. There's
the
old site mp3.com. I don't know if you remember that, but that was kind of like our way of kind of trying to get our music out, and they would actually print a CD and your artwork for you, and like if somebody bought it, they would just send it. It was a very weird business model.
Yeah,
very early internet, late 90s business model.
And there was like we were big participants in a They Might Be Giants message board online. That kind of was like we'd post music to those guys, and they'd share music with us from there. So that was sort of music sharing of like, they'd be writing songs, we'd be writing songs, and it was fun. That was like the first feedback outside of our parents that we ever got, really. And then like, whoa, cool, this dude in Wisconsin thinks our new songs are cool. That's crazy.
It just sort of brings like because Wisconsin, I mean, like that whole northern area, there's bands like that are famous from that area that perhaps might not transcend over to this area, like regional bands. Like, I mean, even the Replacements, I mean, they were huge in Minneapolis for a long time, and then they kind of were it was in their later career that people actually really started to be like, oh, the Replacements, and so it's a nice way to like spread your music around and get you heard.
It's cool. And for kids, in ninth grade, Madison, Wisconsin is like the most exotic place. Like, a guy in Madison thinks we're cool. Whoa. That's awesome.
As the recording process is concerned, and as far as obtaining music off the internet is concerned, sound quality, as far as like the loudness war and things like that, dynamic processing, this kind of technology, how do you guys approach that? Do you sacrifice anything for the sake of getting your music to more people?
I don't think we really fall too deep into like the heavy loudness mastering kind of stuff. I feel like kind of make an effort to make a pretty dynamic record. Like this new one, I feel like there's dynamic shifts within the songs, and then also from song to song. Tried to make like a nice dynamic. And in fact, like when we were printing the vinyl for this, it was sort of, there was parts that were kind of low, and the guy was like, I don't know, sure you don't want us to turn this up? It's like, let's just let it be dynamic, it's music. So
I find that like a lot of the music that you're listening to nowadays, I even personally like music that should sound good, that I know there's a good version of it out there. I'm like, why does this not sound so good? And I'm always concerned about the sacrifice of sound for I don't know, for the sake of of just trying to get it out there, and it just sometimes seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a bummer sometimes, like MP3 quality and whatnot. But at this very same time, you know, I mean, a year or so ago, I first tried Spotify, and I heard a song on there that was like, it inspired me a whole ton. I was like, well, what does it matter? This is like online streaming audio quality, but it's inspiring me to do this thing, so who cares, you know? At the end of the day, it's like, whatever's getting it into people's eardrums, as long as it's not making them plug their ears, that's a positive thing to me.
And even to the point that I mean, you go back and listen to something like New Day Rising or something like that. The whole sound is you can almost hear it. They're trying to get the peak up to as high as they can possibly get, and just to blow your ears out, and it works. Or like even Damaged from Black Flag, or these old records, these punk records that just. In some cases, it doesn't matter. It's the emotion that comes out of the song and whether you're convincing. And
I feel like that's where I'm at now. In the end of the day, just get it to the eardrums.
I want to talk a little bit about Cool Cocoon, and I'm sure you guys are thrilled to talk about that because that's the new record.
Yeah.
I've been listening to it for the last 3 days because I wanted to, and I didn't want to come into this not knowing anything about it, but I find it. I find it to be a growth, like a big step for you guys. I like, obviously, Nice and Nicely Done was the flag in the ground, the sort of let's go from here, and you know, you were signed to Bar None, and after that, I think did you put out another EP on Bar None, or? We
put out a record on Park the Van, an EP, and then an EP on Park the Van.
Okay.
And then the last 2 records we released ourselves on the Spintonic Recordings label.
Are you guys about Spintronic? Like, it's just you guys right now, correct?
Yeah, it's just us.
Are you trying to acquire anybody to record? I mean, you guys are studio people. Do you want to maybe produce another band, or?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm producing and recording bands all the time, but releasing records is a whole nother thing that is really labor intensive on like the office work side of things. So maybe eventually, I mean, that'd be cool, but right now it's sort of, we'll use ourselves as the guinea pigs.
Makes sense. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the process of recording Cool Cocoon. From the ground up. I mean, obviously, like this is you guys just put out a record last year, so I mean, I think before there was like Nice and Nicely Done was in 2005, and then Moonwink was 3 years later. You threw an EP in there, and then Shy Pursuit came out in 2012. There's been big gaps in between, but this one, it's only been a year. What inspired you guys to just hammer out a whole new record?
Well, we were in a position where we finally had nothing holding us back. You know, there was some like lousy business stuff that kind of got in the way of those last couple ones that delayed all of them. So we're finally free of that, and we're able to just plow forward, you know, at a pace that feels like a normal rock band pace. But yeah, I mean, the 9 month gap is pretty quick. Sort of inspired by I was like reading Beatles liner notes and realizing like how quick those guys are working, and it's like we're really lazy compared to these guys, which I guess it's probably a high standard to hold yourselves to, the Beatles, but it was what kind of
they did have millions of dollars at the time to
yeah. So that was sort of and just to kind of, you know, those long gaps, I feel like it hurts bands to have, unless you've somehow made a huge splash and people just like wait at your doorstep for your new release. It's you know, I feel like a quicker pace, as long as you're making nice material and you're not compromising anything, feels better these days.